Hello, today I'm going to talk about Fireball Island, the Curse of Vul-Kar. Uh, this came out in 2018. I think I got it from a Kickstarter. There's lots of expansions for this game. I don't own any of those. I just have the base game, so that's all I'll be talking about. This was a kind of remake of a game from, I think, 1986, Fireball Island. And I think they updated some of the mechanisms and stuff when it came out in 2018. Anyway, I got this to play uh, with my daughter back then in 2018. We played it a few times, and she thought it was okay. But again, as I've mentioned in quite a few of my videos, she's just really not into board games. But she did enjoy a few plays of this that that we did do, but she never really requested it or anything. Anyway, let me get on with how to set it up. Alright, first thing you'll have to do is assemble the island. It comes in 3 pieces, so you just kind of set this center piece on top of these 2 side pieces. It comes with these 2 the things they called scrims. This one says helipad side, so it goes here to kind of cover the hole on this front side here. And then there's one that also covers the hole on the Vul-Kar side, which Vul-Kar sits here. So I'll put that there. I guess if you have people playing on that side of the board, that covers it up for them. You put Vul-Kar, that's this figure, on the center space here. Now, normally it's just this gray color. My daughter did paint this, I guess when I got it in 2018, so that's why it looks like that instead of just the solid gray color. You'll place the 2 bridges that come with the game in these locations where it shows that the bridges go. There's another one right here. And then there is a ladder piece that goes right here where you see that the ladder goes. There are 7 trees that look like this that go in these slots here, and it says you insert them with their roots, which is this pointy end facing Vul-Kar. So I'll do that for all of them. Alright, so I've added all of the trees in with their roots facing toward the Vul-Kar figure. You then place the 6 orange ember marbles on these spaces near the top part of the island that look like little fire pits. Well, I'll grab that. Anyway, let me do this and I'll get all 6 of them on there. So once they're all on, they should be in those locations. Next you place the heart of Vul-Kar, which is this gem in this location. They say it's the looming shadow of Vul-Kar. Next you'll take these treasure tokens, turn them all face down, shuffle them up, and then place them face up on these slabs on the board. There should be at least 36 of them for the base game, and there's 36 tokens, so let me get that done. Alright, so once that's done, you should have 36 treasure tokens placed on the treasure slabs throughout the board. Assemble this piece, which is called the maw, and place the lucky penny token in it. Next, place this piece, which is called the cataclysm tracker, somewhere near your board. Place 1 red fireball in this trough, which is called the scar. Place your remaining red fireballs on this location on the cataclysm tracker. Assemble and place the helicopter somewhere near the helipad, near the game board. Each player will take a figure and matching color reference card and then they'll place their figure in the helicopter. So I'm going to be setting up for a 3-player game. So I'll have blue, yellow, and green. So each player has a reference card that tells you what you can do on your turn and kind of how scoring works. Place this deck of cards, which is called the snapshot cards, just somewhere near the board. You'll shuffle this deck of cards, which is the souvenir cards, and deal 1 face down to each player. Then just set the remaining cards somewhere near the board. Next you'll shuffle the action deck, which is the deck with this back on it, and deal 2 face down to each player. Then just set the remainder of the deck somewhere near the board. And that completes setup. The first player will be the youngest player, and everyone's first move will be from the helicopter to the helipad. Alright, so now let's talk about how we play. Alright, so how do you play? Well, starting with the first player, which is the youngest player, they will start their turn. Now the first thing you'll do on your turn is if you have been knocked over on a previous player's turn, you'll stand your figure up. So for instance, if maybe you got knocked down here on a previous player's turn, first thing you'll do on your turn is stand your figure up in the space that it's landed on. If your figure is laying on more than one space, then you stand it up and you choose which space of the ones you were laying on, which space to place your figure on. If your figure is in a river or in a lava chute, you move your figure down the river or lava chute and then place your figure on the space at the end. If there's more than one possible space there, then you just choose which one of the spaces to stand your figure on. If your figure is knocked off the island, then you can start on any cave space. Cave spaces are the spaces with these numbers like 2, 3, or well, here's another 2, a 1. So on any cave space, you place your figure if it was knocked off of the board. Any other kind of weird space, then just put your figure on the space closest to that weird space. Alright, so that's the first thing you do on your turn. If you were knocked over, stand up. Next thing you'll do on your turn is play one of your action cards. Your action cards will usually have an amount that you can move, and then they may have some other effect. So you must move the full amount that it shows for you to move on the action card you play. Then you can do its effect. That's a may if you want to. So for instance, this one, if you played this, you would have to move 8, and then you can afterwards launch an ember marble. So at the beginning of the game, you start on the helicopter. Your first move from the helicopter to the island is always to the helipad. After that, any of these light sand-colored spaces that are separated by a muddy space are valid spaces. So if this guy was going to play this card to move 8, this would be 1, and then he would go, he could go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did I move 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. So you just skip over these these mud spaces. Those are just in between legal spaces. When you pass by a space with these icons, they are next to a treasure slab. When you land on or pass by one, you can grab the treasure token that is there and place it in your play area. You'll want to keep your treasure tokens face down in front of you. You can look at them at any time, but you don't want the other players to know exactly what you have. If you move past one of these spaces with these icons that's next to treasure slabs that has more than one treasure token adjacent to it, you can only grab one unless you have some effect. Like on this action card that says move 4, you may grab all treasures from slabs when moving instead of picking one. So unless you have effect like that, when you passed by here, you could only grab one of these. But then if you were still moving and you moved here and here, as you pass by here, you could grab another one. So you can grab one from each space that you move by. If you're moving by a tree root like this, you just pass over it. It doesn't block you from moving there. If you start on or land on a cave spot, remember those are the ones with the numbers, you take this six-sided die, which I forgot to mention during setup because I don't think it's in the setup of the rule book. But anyway, this six-sided die does come with it. When you land on a cave spot, or start on or land on a cave spot, you roll the die, and then you can move to any cave spot with that number. So I could move to this number 3 or this number 3 if I rolled the 3 there. And that does not count as one of your movement when you move to that. Then you can continue moving with whatever movement you had left. So if you landed here, if you were moving 5 and you landed here on a 3, you'd move to over here and you'd still have 2 moves left. If it happened that you rolled a 3 and both of the 3 cave spots had figures occupying them, then you would just stop moving and stay where you are. If you move onto one of the unstable spaces, which is the 2 bridges or the ladder, then you stop moving when you enter the unstable space. So even if I had a move 8 and I went 1, 2, 3, I would have to stop moving there because that's considered an unstable space. Then on my next turn I could move further. So that's the same with the ladder or any of the 2 bridges. Those are unstable spaces and you have to stop moving when you enter one unless some game effect allows you not to. If you're moving and you come to a space with another player, you just hop over that player. Don't count the space they're on as one of the spaces you're moving. So if you were here and you had a move 5, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, of course, I would have been able to take one of these treasure tokens from this space since I passed by it. But whenever another player, you come to a space with another player, you always hop over them, and their space does not count as one of your movement spaces. So if another player was on an unstable space and you had, movement 4, 1, 2, you'd have to hop over them so you wouldn't have to stop. Then you can continue 3, 4, but then I'd have to stop on that one. But anyway, if you hop over a player on an unstable space, then you don't have to stop at that unstable space. If you start or enter a snapshot space, one of these spaces with a snapshot icon, there's blue, red, or yellow. If you start on or move through, pass through, or enter a space with a snapshot icon, you take the corresponding snapshot card. So for instance, if I pass through this snapshot space yellow with the skull, then I'd get the snapshot deck, look for the yellow cards, find the one with the skull on it, and take that and put it in my play area. Obviously, if another player was already on that snapshot space, I would have to skip over it, so I couldn't land on it and take the snapshot. If you already have a snapshot of that color, then you don't take another one. So if you already have one yellow, you wouldn't go here and get... If you had yellow with the skull, you wouldn't go here and get the yellow with the foot. You only get one of each color. So you can get one yellow, one red, and one blue, but you can't have more than one of each color. And if the one you land on, like if you landed or moved through the yellow skull, well, there's only two with a yellow skull. So if two other players have already got that and you land or pass through it, then you don't get anything. You'll have to go to where one of the other yellow spaces so you could get the yellow foot card. If you enter this space, you can take the Heart of Vul-Kar and put that in your play area. If you have the Heart of Vul-Kar, for instance, if the blue player had the Heart of Vul-Kar and the yellow player passes over that player, they can steal the Heart of Vul-Kar and then put it in their play area. Also, when you're moving, you can move in any direction the path allows you, but you can't change direction. So if you started here and played a move 4, you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, but you couldn't go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't change directions in the middle of a card. Now later, when you play another card on a future turn, then you can go a different direction. So again, the first thing you'll do on your turn is stand yourself up if you had been knocked down on a previous player's turn. Then you'll play an action card and move. You must move the full amount of spaces shown in the move, and then you can do the effect that the card allows you to if you want to, or the action. So let's talk about the different actions. So for this one, it says launch an Ember Marble. When you launch an Ember Marble, that's one of the red marbles. You can push, or not the red marbles, the orange marbles. You can push one orange marble. You can't flick it like with your thumb and forefinger. You can only push it with your finger, so you can push it in a direction, but you can't flick it. So you'll be doing that to try to knock over other players. However, if you push it so hard that it ends up going off of the island, then even if you did knock someone over, they get to stand themselves back up with no penalty, and you have to take one of your treasures and put it in the maw for your insolence of pushing it so hard. So you want to push it, but not so hard that it goes off the island. If you grab the Heart of Vul-Kar, then you take one of the red marbles from the Cataclysm track and add it to the scar. So I mentioned kind of your goal of flicking the Ember Marbles, if you are allowed to launch one, or not flick, but pushing them, is you're probably trying to knock over another player. Well, the reason you want to do that is because when you knock over another player, they have to give you one of their treasures. Now, as I said, if you push the Ember Marble so hard that it goes off the table, then they get to stand up and then they don't have to give you a treasure. So you want to push it to knock somebody over, but not so hard that it goes off the table. But if anything you do knocks over another player, then they have to give you a treasure from their pile if they have one. But to kind of compensate for that, if somebody knocks over your figure, they do get to steal a treasure from you, but you get to get a souvenir card. And souvenir cards, you start with one at the beginning of the game. They give you some kind of benefit. They're all different, like this one. Play when you would lose a treasure, then you don't lose the treasure. So if somebody was going to steal your treasure because they knocked you over, you could play this, discard it, and they wouldn't get to take the treasure. So the souvenir cards have different effects, usually beneficial to you. If something you do on your turn knocks your own figure over, then you have to lose one of your treasures, but you just put it into the maw, and then you get to draw a souvenir card. All right, let's look at another type of action that might be on an action card. All right, you might see an action like this that says after moving, and it's got a hand with a little dial. That lets you make two adjustments to either, you can either turn two trees, and when you turn one, you can turn it however you want, whatever, it's up to you how you turn it. Or you can turn Vul-Kar one space for each one of these. So when you turn him, you just kind of lift him up a little bit, turn him until he falls back in. So that would be one turn. So again, when you see this icon, that allows you to turn one thing, so either Vul-Kar or a tree. If it has two of them, then you could turn two things, so two different trees, or Vul-Kar twice, or however you want to work that. If you do rotate Vul-Kar, you can rotate him either direction. Alright, another type of card you might have is a Cataclysm. It does allow you to move, and then after moving you can rotate something, either a tree or Vul-Kar. But then it says you then drop all the fireballs in the scar into Vul-Kar. So however many fireballs are here in the scar, you'll then drop them into the top of Vul-Kar, and they'll move and fall out somewhere and knock you, or hopefully other players and not you, over. But then normally, after you've played an action card, you put it into the action card discard pile. When you play a Cataclysm card, you put it over here into the Cataclysm tracker slot, whichever one is available. Once a third Cataclysm card is played into the tracker, you'll then add one more fireball to the scar, and you'll go ahead and take all the Cataclysm cards in the tracker, along with all the discarded action cards, and shuffle them into the action card deck to reform a new action card deck. Alright, so let's go back again. On your turn, first thing you'll do is stand yourself up if you had been knocked over. Then you'll play one action card and move the full amount shown on the action card, and then you may do the action on it if you want to. Then you draw a new action card from the action card deck, so at the beginning of your turn you'll always have two action cards. Then the last thing you'll do on your turn is reset the board. If you launched an Ember Marble, you'll put that back where it came from, along with any other Ember Marbles that maybe got knocked over. If you dropped fireballs into Vul-Kar, any bridges or ladders or marbles that got knocked over at that time all get reset to how they were at the beginning of your turn. The red fireballs will go back into the scar. The only thing you won't set back up is people. If people are knocked over, figures or other players' figures are knocked over, or your own figure, you don't pick it up. Players stand up their figures at the beginning of their turn. After you complete your turn, it's the next player in clockwise order's turn, and play will continue like that until you get to the end game. So the end game happens in one of two ways. If a player has collected all three different color snapshots, red, yellow, and blue, and they enter the helipad, that will trigger the end game. Or if a fourth red marble is added to the scar, then that will trigger the end game. So normally, once at the beginning of the game, once all three players are on the board, you'll move the helicopter out of the way. Once you trigger the end game by one of the two things I just said, either a player with three different colored snapshots enters the helipad, or it turn ends after the fourth red ball is added to the scar, then you'll move the helicopter back. At that point, players can move onto the helicopter from the helipad for one movement. They don't have to have an exact count, and if the player that's triggering the end, because they have the three different colored snapshots, has movement left over once they enter the helipad, then they can immediately move into the helicopter. when a player enters the helicopter at the end of the game, they get to take one of the tokens from the maw, either the lucky penny or a treasure token that's in there, and put it in their play area. Once you've moved into the helicopter, then you can no longer be knocked over. Players can't steal anything from you. Um, you can still be affected by a card that affects other players. And on your turn, you still play an action card, but you don't do the move portion. You only do the action portion if you want to. So the game will end immediately then it, when all players have made it back to the helicopter, or all players have had at least 2 turns to try to make it back to the helicopter after the end game was triggered. If all players have had 2 turns and some people are still on the island, then the game still ends immediately. Players will then total their scores, and you can see here you'll get the player that has the Heart of Vul-Kar gets 7 points. The lucky penny is worth 6 points. Players that did make it back to the helicopter will get 5 points for each snapshot card they have. And then the treasures, depending on the number of each color that you have, you'll get a variable number of points. So if you had, 3 with the coins on it, you'd get 6 points for that. If you had 1 with just this picture, you'd get 1 point for that. If you had, 4 with the whatever that little fire gem is, you would get 10 points for having 4 of those. And you can see how to add it up here. So then players will total all their points, and the player with the most points wins the game. If there's a tie for the players with the most points, then among those tied players, whichever one made it to the helipad first wins. If neither of those players made it back to the helipad, then whichever one was nearest wins the game. Alright, so that's how you play. We'll go ahead and set up and do some example rounds. Alright, I think everything is how it was at the beginning of the game, right after setup. So let's go through a few example turns. So we'll just say our blue player is our starting player. First thing he would do is he or she would do is stand their figure up, but since it's the first turn of the game, nobody's knocked over. So next they just play an action card. Let's go ahead and look and see what their souvenir card is. Play before moving, do not stop on unstable spaces. So they may use that. Alright, they got a move 8 and launch an Ember Marble, or a move 4 and grab all treasures. Well, let's say they're going to play their move 8. This is the blue player, so their first move is to the helipad. That's 1. And we'll just say they want to head down this way. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they could launch an Ember Marble. Since there's no other player on the board right now, that probably is not a good idea. So they're going to pass on launching the Ember Marble. So this will just go into the action card discard pile. And next they'll draw themselves a new action card. I got a Cataclysm. And since we didn't launch any marbles or anything, we don't need to reset anything on the board. So that ends that player's turn. Alright, next we come to our yellow player. Of course, they're not on the board yet, so they're not knocked over. They don't need to stand up. So next they just play an action card. They got 1 move 4, and then they got a move 6 Cataclysm. So we'll say they want to play the move 6. Alright, so this is our yellow player. So their first move is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now they've entered a cave, so they're going to roll the dice. And they got a 3, so they can come out at one of the 3s. he's going to come out over here. Now that doesn't count as one of his moves, so he still has one another additional move, so he'll move here for a 6. Alright, next it has a rotate that this player can do if they want to. So they could rotate one of the trees, or they could rotate Vul-Kar. I think he's going to choose not to rotate anything at this time, but he will then go ahead and drop all the fireballs in the scar into Vul-Kar. There's only one currently, so he will drop it in. And came over here. He was kind of hoping maybe it would roll down here and knock over the blue player, but unfortunately it doesn't. This then gets discarded into the Cataclysm tracker since it's the first one there. Nothing further to do. And now we reset the board. So we place the red fireball back in the scar, and this ladder got knocked over. So we'll place that back up, and that is going to... Oh, he's got to draw a new action card, and that ends his turn. Alright, the green player's turn. Again, it's their first turn, so they're not knocked over, so they don't need to stand up. So let's see what they got. We'll say they're going to move 12. Now with this card that the green player is playing, they can't grab any treasures while they're moving. So normally you can, but this one they can't. Now if they hopped over somebody that had the Heart of Vul-Kar, they could steal that from them, because it says you can steal treasures, and you can still take snapshots if you land on a snapshot space. So let's just move him 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we would be able to take a treasure if we hadn't played that card. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so they didn't get to grab any treasures because of this card they played. And now, after moving, they can turn 2 different things. So they're going to turn, for one of their things, they're going to turn this tree. So if a marble came this way, hopefully it won't roll on them. And maybe they'll turn Vul-Kar 1 space. Alright, now they take a new action card. Let's just see what their souvenir card is. Oh, it's one of those where they don't lose any treasures. And that's going to end their turn. They didn't do anything to upset the board, so they don't need to reset anything. Alright, so now everybody's out of the helicopter, so it can just kind of fly away. Alright, we're back to the blue player. What was their card again? Not to stop on unstable spaces. Alright. So we'll have the blue player's going to play this one. You can move 4, and you may grab all treasures from slabs from when moving instead of just one. So she's going to move 1. Now because of that card she played, instead of just grabbing one of these, she grabs both of them. So we'll put those in her play area. That was only 1, so she can still move 3 more. 2, 3, 4. Alright, now this gets discarded. She takes another card back into her hand. And there's nothing to reset, so we can move on to the yellow player's turn. Alright, yellow player has this. We'll say they want to play this one, search. So move 6. So they were up here, so first they're going to move 1 onto this snapshot space that has the fire on it. So they get to grab a snapshot, red snapshot card with the fire. So that's this one. They'll put that in their play area. And that was only 1 space, so they still have 5 more spaces to move. So they'll come down this way. 2, 3, 4. Now they get to grab one of these treasures, so they'll grab this one. 5. Now they get to grab this treasure. And 6. Oops. Ah. 6. And now they get to grab this treasure. Alright, so that worked out pretty well. They got a snapshot and 3 treasures. Then after moving, they get to draw a souvenir card, so we'll do that. This one, play when you're about to draw an action card. You take an action card from the discard pile instead. And we are about to take an action card, so if we want to take one from the discard pile, we can. If we want to play that card, but we'll just draw one. See, oh, so they got one just like what they just had. Alright. Nothing to reset on the board, so we move on to the next player. Alright, back to the green player. We'll have them play a Cataclysm, so they're going to move 6. So they'll move 1. They get to take one of these treasures from this slab, so they'll take this one. Then they'll move 2, 3, 4. Now they'll get to take a yellow snapshot with the skull on it. So we'll take this one. So we put that in their play area. That's 4. And then they can move 5, 6 and take this treasure. Alright, now after moving they can turn something if they want. So let's see, do they want to turn? They're pretty safe the way Vul-Kar is turned right now. I think they don't want to turn anything, and they will go ahead and drop the fireball. So we'll see what happens. Oh, it went his way, but it didn't knock him over, so that's good. Alright, and now we put this Cataclysm into the Cataclysm tracker. And this player draws a new card into their hand, and then we reset the board. Only thing that happened is this goes back into the scar. Nothing else got knocked over. So we'll end that turn. I guess we'll play another turn. I'm trying to play until somebody gets knocked over by something. So we'll play another one. It's the blue player's turn. She'll play this one, a Cataclysm 6. So she's going to move 1, 2. Now she gets a blue one with, I don't know, whatever that symbol is on it, blue snapshot. I guess that's a boat symbol. Alright, so she's going to put that in her play area. Alright, she had only moved 2, so she got 4 more moves. So 3, 4, 5. She can take one from this slab. She'll take this. 5. She has 1 more move, so she will move there. Alright, then she has the option to turn something and drop the fireball, so she's going to do that. But she is going to turn Vul-Kar back this way. And then she'll drop the fireball. And the only thing it did is drop there and move the ladder. Alright. Alright, now this gets discarded in the tracker, which is now going to make 3 in our tracker. So we will take these and shuffle these along with any previous discard action cards into the action deck. So let me do that. Alright, I've got that shuffled and put back. Then we add 1 more marble to the scar. Alright, now he's got to, or here she's got to draw an action card back into her hand. So she has 2. And then we have to reset the board, so we got to get our marble that we dropped. So now whenever somebody does a Cataclysm, we'll be dropping 2 marbles. And we need to reset the ladder. And that ends the blue player's turn. Alright, on to the yellow player. They're not knocked over. Nobody's been knocked over, unfortunately. Alright, the yellow player is going to play this move 6. So they're going to go, they're on this space, so they're going to go 1, 2, 3. They get to grab this treasure. 4, 5. They get to grab this treasure. And 6. Okay, and then they get to draw a souvenir card. Play when you knock over 1 or more players. All knocked over players must give you an extra treasure. Alright, and now this goes into the discard pile, and they draw a new action card, And there's nothing to reset, so we move on to the green player. Alright, so we can show a launching the Ember Marble. We'll have the green player do this one and move 10. Now they've already got a yellow snapshot, so they need to move on and get themselves a red or a blue snapshot. So they'll go up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. 6, 7. Now they can get the red snapshot with the horns on it. So that's this one. So now they've got 2 of the 3 colors of snapshots they need. Wait, that was 7. So they'll go 8, 9, and 10 right there. Okay, and now after moving, they can launch an Ember Marble. So I think they're going to do that. And let's see, maybe green's going to try to knock over yellow. So remember, you can't flick it, you can just push it. Ow, hit him but didn't knock him over. So, unfortunately. Alright, so this gets discarded. They draw a new card into their hand. Oh, they got the same card. And now reset the board. So we just put this Ember Marble back where it was. I don't know if I said in my rules overview, but to be considered knocked over, if any part of your figure other than the base is touching the island, then you're considered knocked over, or if you're off the board. So just because they got hit didn't mean they get knocked over. They would actually have to, if they had been like tilted like that or like that, that would be considered knocked over, or like that. But they just got shoved back by the Ember Marble, so they didn't get knocked over. Alright. We'll do one more turn. If nobody gets knocked over, oh well. We'll move on to the blue player. Alright. We'll have the blue player play. They're going to play another Cataclysm. Alright, so they got to move 6. They've already got a blue snapshot card, so they need to be trying to get up to the top and the other side of the island to get a red and a yellow. So, alright, they're going to move 6. So 1, they get to take this treasure. 2, 3, they get to take this treasure. 4, 5. Now they already have a blue snapshot, so they can't take another one. So 6. So that's a cave, so we got to roll the die. A 1. So they will move to this other one on the other side of the island. So they go through the cave, come out here. Now that was their 6 was their movement to land there, so they can't move after they stop there. But now they can turn something and then drop the fireballs. So let's do that. Let's see. They probably want to turn Vul-Kar since they look kind of vulnerable there. So they'll turn Vul-Kar once this way. Alright, now they're going to drop 2 marbles into the scar. Oh no. Oh, well. Oh, well. Green fell over. Now, even though a marble didn't hit them, if the vibrations from the marbles moving around the board make your figure fall over, then that counts. The only way it wouldn't count is like if somebody accidentally bumped the island, or their cat jumps up on it or something and it knocks people over, then that doesn't count. But if vibrations from the fireballs rolling around don't hit you but cause you to knock over, that counts. So green was knocked over, so blue gets to take one of their treasures. So he'll take this one. But then green does get to draw a souvenir card. Oh, but you know what? Green had this card they could play when you would lose any treasure, you do not lose the treasure. So they'll play that, get it discarded so they actually don't lose this treasure after all. And alright, so blue will discard this card into the Cataclysm. They'll draw themselves a new action card and then reset the board. So they'll just put these 2 marbles back on the scar. And then we'd go on to the yellow player's turn. Now when it comes to the green player's turn, first thing they would do is stand themselves up here in this space where they're at, and then continue their turn. So I think you can see how the game plays. It's nothing I would pull out with my strategy gaming friends, but you know, if you got younger kids or something around the house, 10 years old or, around that age, it's a fun game to pull out. It doesn't take very long and people can have fun with it. As I mentioned at the beginning, I know there's quite a few expansions to this. I don't know, I think there's like a pirate ship. There was bees. I think there's some kind of flipping tiger. There's a boulder. I think there's other kind of treasures. I don't know what all the different expansions are. I don't have any of them, but there are quite a few, and maybe that makes it a lot more fun. I'm not sure. All right. So I think that's about all I have to say about it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.